Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report. Again, bringing you the show from the Plains Cotton Growers annual meeting. All right, when we get into the price outlook, Jody, we talked about the supply situation, a big question mark about acreage this year. But what is the price outlook for cotton if the demand picture stays the same?
So, the current demand picture, demand is improving, but we're still struggling. And as we look ahead, it's really going to depend on kind of what happens with the U.S. crop for this year. Not just the U.S. crop, though, it's really going to depend on what happens in Brazil and Australia. Brazil continues to expand their acreage, produce a bigger crop. Australia has water, so their crop should be good as well. So all of those things contributed could create some price pressure for this next year.
Other than South America and the supply there, what is the biggest wild card for cotton demand this year?
The biggest wild card for cotton demand, we're going to have to see where economic growth goes. So right now, current world GDP growth projections are about 3.1% for 2024. Now, we don't generally see a large swing in cotton demand from one year to the next, a large bounce back with growth at about 3%. So we're going to need to see better economic growth, better cotton demand.
You mentioned that you just went to D.C. and you had your baseline outlook. If prices stay where they are today, what is the outlook for the cotton industry? And really, you ran the numbers with rice as well. What does it look like for those growers this year?
Yeah, I think one thing in the very near term, we ended up, in price discovery on crop insurance this year, roughly in the same spot we were in last year. And so I think it was encouraging that we got that bump kind of early on, in the lead into this growing season. So I think certainly, with all the drought pressure we've been under the last couple of years, there's a bunch of financial pressure in the countryside. I think we could have added to that pressure, had we not been able to lock in that 83 cent range. But going forward, I think it's absolutely imperative that we raise reference prices. And certainly on the House side, just judging by the workload that we're under right now for the Ag Committee, I think it is clear they're working on putting together a bill because they have us doing a tremendous amount of analysis. I think the same goes for the Senate side too, though. Senator Bozeman from Arkansas has also said, it was a non-starter for him to move a farm bill that didn't adjust reference prices as well. And so, to me, the long-term outlook for cotton farms is sort of dependent on making improvements to those reference prices.
It's not just about reference prices. A lot of talk here about disaster aid. And the latest round of funding that we saw come out of D.C. did not include disaster aid. The last round of disaster aid, some question marks about some disparities there. Will we see any changes? Will USDA make this right, Brad?
I don't know if USDA will make the 2022 right without some push from Congress or other means. I think you saw two major departures in the 2022 ERP where they put in a progressive factor where it paid less as the year loss grew. And then second, they also only paid crop insurance premiums back to an underserved category. And I think those two major departures are the things that need to be fixed and that we will look at going forward if we do a future disaster program.
Yeah, and you look at the devastating drought this year and the financial hardship that it is creating for these growers. Did that program help?
I think it helped, but it didn't go far enough for the losses that you saw that were really deep losses when you get into those six-figure losses. If you're only seeing a 10% return on what your loss was, it's really not enough to make those growers be able to go back to the bank and get the funding they need for the next year.
Or do you think Congress is hearing that this last round of disaster aid, that the changes in it did not work for this area that faced that severe drought?
I think they're absolutely hearing it. I also wonder if that's one reason why there wasn't disaster assistance included in this latest spending package because of frustration. I think it's also partly because there's an impending farm bill too, but we do have this period between the two where there are growers, with real need out there, and it's certainly exacerbated, as Brad mentioned, by how this last round was designed by the department.
Jody, real quick, we talk a lot about policy, but end us on a bright note here. What is the bright spot in cotton?
The bright spot in cotton. Well, we do have more acreage projections for next year. And right now, moisture conditions are better in Texas than they have been. I'm not going to say they're great, but they are better than they were last year and the year before that. So hopefully, Texas abandonment will be a lot less this year and we'll have a bigger crop. So I think everyone's wanting to look forward to having a bigger U.S. cotton crop this year.
Thank you, Bart, as well as Brad, as well as Jody. We appreciate you being on the panel this weekend. All right, we need to take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on U.S. Farm Report.